40 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, bunnies. So we're actually going to be doing this for the second time. I actually just finished recording this video, and the video completely corrupted out. So we're going to try this again. I do apologize for that. I'm going to reuse the audio from my last video. So I do apologize that I'm going to be talking about things. A couple of times I talk about stuff in the game that aren't going to be in this video because it's in the last one. But it's like 35 minutes of audio track, and I really don't want to have to record it. Anyway, thanks and enjoy. Good morning, bunnies. So today we are going to be running a Caldari faction warfare mission. And in addition, we're going to be talking about lore again. Taking a break from the racial lore for a second to talk about hopefully two subjects. Number one, the Broker, and number two, the Code Aria incident. Okay, so we're going to start with the Broker. A bit of outside of lore bit. The Broker is basically an NPC embodiment of what the players in New Eden are to the NPCs within New Eden. Right? He's been used quite a bit in the past to alter the course of events within New Eden outside the player's control, but in a way that the players would kind of do it. Alright, so actually in lore, nobody knows his name, his place of origin, his age, or his race, though it is suspected he is either Amarian or Galente. Amarian is more selected because that's actually where he first started showing up, although he was, at the time, selling Galente and Caldari weapons and weapons technology. There is no actual official record on the Broker, because officially he doesn't exist. But there's quite a bit of unofficial information about him. The best place to start with him is actually one of his worst operations. And one of the closest ones he got to being caught. And one of his earliest as well. He was playing... He arrived in a system to sell, as I previously stated, Caldari and Galente weapons tech. And he heard that two of the holders in the area were unhappy with each other. So he actually started playing one off the other, stoking their fears, and basically took them for everything. By the time it got after a while it got to the point where the Emperor stepped in, Amarian Emperor, he stepped in to calm everything down. By that point, the Broker had already fled. That's kind of where he got his name from, being a broker. He bought and sold things. But there's no... Like I said, there's no real records of him doing things, because he, like many pod pilots, clone jumps quite often. Now, he has been in operation, or assumed operation, for a little over 50 years, or so they think. It's not exactly known, like I said, where he started or who he is. Yeah. Was looking at the wrong screen at that point. He has a very high technology level. It is rumored that he has actually acquired Jovian tech, because he started his operations well before the pod pilot technology has existed. and he's actually been known to operate upwards of 3 or 4 clones at the same time. It's actually kind of impressive, really, from our perspective. Most of his clones are sleeper agents and not active as such. And then he'll activate their consciousness through a keyword. And, the consciousness will activate. And then he'll, do whatever he had programmed, or he had wanted that clone to be used for. Some of the best examples of this are a couple of the rumored exploits he's got. Number one is the hacking of the Caldari border control system. He also has he took down the border control system when the Caldari invaded to take back the Caldari Prime, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure that was him. Either way, he took down the border control system. He is the one responsible for the destruction of the Malcolin headquarters of the Ishikon Corporation. At the time, he was impersonating a Galenti Navy Rear Admiral and in control of a supercarrier, which he used to ram into the station. His reasons for that I will get to in a minute. Mostly because it's some pretty deep story stuff. I want to get a couple other points out of the way, and one that will link into the story we'll talk about in a minute. It is rumored that he was involved in the, or it is rumored that it is thought that he was involved in the Code Aria incident, as he's one of the few people that would have the technological know-how to actually pull off the hacks needed to do that. And it's thought that research into how he operates is what has resulted in something called the Thatnos Project that Concord operates. So, I believe I've actually talked before about the Vitoxin when I talked about the Amarians. It's a really nasty drug that they use to help keep their slaves in line. During one of his operations, supposedly when he was setting up one of his clone batches, he became infected with Vitoxin without his knowledge. The clone batch was made, and the genetic markers that he used to do all his clones became infected with Vitoxin. So he was pretty desperate for a while, and actually led quite a few corporations in the research and development for a cure for Vitoxin poisoning. Wow, they're getting on us. So yeah, he was pretty vital in that one, in that respect. But he found out through his spy networks that the Ishikon Corporation had found a cure. Not just this abates it or this, pushes it back, but a full-on cure. He, of course, tried the honorable thing. He offered to buy it. Then he started using rougher and rougher tactics to try to secure it. Trying to buy out parts of the Ishikun Corporation become a major shareholder, things like that. All of which were prevented and stopped until he came to his final judgment of, give it to me or I'm going to kill you and everybody on this station. He was told no, and so he crashed into the station. Now, that didn't kill him. He still had other clones. But it basically doomed him. After that, most of his clones would last at most a week. And he was dying. And that, the last we've heard from him was basically that his clone banks have gone dormant. So that's the broker. Really crazy guy, but one of us, basically. He's an immortal and acted basically how most players do when dealing with NPCs. Which leads us over to the Code Aria project. And I think I might have to do another mission to get through this one. The Code Aria incident. It's probably one of the most documented aspects of lore in the history of EVE. To the point where it actually has its own PDF document, and I'll have a link to that down in the link section or the information section, because it is a read. It's pretty heavy, but it's really interesting for people who really just want to get into the lore of the game. But anyway, so what is it? And that kind of ties back into why we don't have drones in this game, and don't have actual drones in this game, and why the drones we do have are dumber than rocks. Namely, the RDVs that like it to crash into everybody all the time. Well, the Gallente specifically, excuse me, because of their fascination with the drones and getting other people to do stuff for them, so that they could have their nice laid-back society, began looking into and developing better AIs for their drones. But that presented a problem. Every time they get a real breakthrough, basically the drones went rogue, killed the scientists, and escaped. Well, after the third or fourth time that happened, Concord stepped in, shut down all research into AI, and basically outlawed it. Any recursive learning or high-level functioning AI was banned. Any research into such was banned. And, compromising that basically puts the safety of everyone in New Eden at risk. Code Aria was an investigation into another incident, actually, but that's the basis for part of it. And that's where I have to start. Several years after that, the Gallente Federation was looking at expanding their holdings. Because, that's what you do when you're a federation and want more space, to try to get a leg up on the other empires. So they started exploring a sector of space that hadn't been colonized or explored before. And of course, because they use drones a lot, they brought in drone fleets to build the gate network that is used to travel around from system to system in EVE. And about 4 months or so into the project, the Galente Navy did a mass and emergency evacuation of all personnel and locked down all of the gates. According to all reports that Concord managed to get while they were investigating the initial event, they were attacked by their own fleet drones. More than likely due to encounters that had previously happened with rogue AI. Basically, the drones they had worked on previously who had escaped saw these giant fleets of drones and took them over, spreading its own AI and breeding a new hostile force. Concord took over the gates and fully locked them down, and then began an investigation into the drones themselves on the other side. And that's the original Code Aria investigation. The specific incident we need to talk about when we talk about the Code Aria incident is in YC 108, which would be, it's YC 15 now, so that'd be 7 years ago. On November 27th, it is unknown what time, but the gates activated. An unknown backdoor was used from a control node, somewhere within the gate network. It activated all of I can talk. And I'm not even trying to fight yet. I'm just trying to talk here. Okay, well, anyway. An unknown activation code was sent. It was set without location or without full command line. But it reactivated all of the gates within the network. Now, this wouldn't be huge, except for the fact that the network was a lot larger than Concord had thought it was. Now, due to the way the code was entered, Concord actually didn't detect it right away. They didn't know about the error or the activation until 8 hours after it began. By the time they got in and knew about it, the pod pilots had already moved in and were beginning to settle the area. Oh wow, he's bouncing around a lot. So yeah. But, so yeah. And they began looking into, they basically expected the drones had done this and expected the drones to start flooding in from the other side, but that never happened. There was one activation from our side going in, which is why they suspect that somebody else who had quite a bit of technological know-how somehow managed to activate the gate from within the network and open it up for everybody to use. Why am I using that one? I want to use my own. And this, because when no dangers have presented themselves, basically when the rogue drones didn't materialize, the Concord stood down and basically allowed the pod pilots to continue to act in that area, which is now called the rogue drone regions. This, of course, leads us on to the drones that we would be expected to fight here in Dust. mostly because that's where these drones come from. Rogue drones have, for quite a while, been active within New Eden space, attacking planets and resources, so that they can constantly rebuild their forces. Mostly because they need it. I mean, it's without a way to replicate themselves, other than stealing technology and stuff from us. Without stealing technology and stuff from us, they have no way to stay ahead. So it's vitally important to the rogue drones to acquire both technology and materials to continue to build and increase the number of drones that they've got. Excuse me. Which is, of course, like I said, where we come in. As the battles rage on our planets, we provide a bigger and better target for the drones, because they're going to want our technology and our materials. It's always been planetary infrastructure on the Eve side, at least lore-wise, has always been a great target for them, because they have always it's provided them with a lot of raw resources that they've needed, which is one of the reasons why it has been strongly expected within Dust that we would have to fight off rogue drone invasions in planetary conquest, because otherwise, that they would just kind of mow us over and take over. Which one's the crouch? I died. Anyway, so it's always been thought that we would be fighting them. And a lot of us agree, simply because I actually want to launch with that. It provides a great player versus environment experience, as the rogue drones do on the Eve side. They're actually a pretty good and funny enemy to fight against. Not the best, but they're pretty fun to fight. But yeah, so the rogue drones were quite a strong force in the beginning. It actually didn't take very long for the players to kick them out of the drone areas. I would actually love to see, lore-wise, the drones start employing the Sancha. Basically, invasion technology that CCP uses for the Sancha, I would love to see for the drones, because it really fits the style of play that they have. Because they've strongly been sweet kill assist. But yeah, so the Sancha at this point invade certain sectors of space to steal people to convert into into soldiers to fight for them. And this would completely align with how the drones operate as well, because they're constantly invading different sections of space to gather resources to rebuild their own. So lore-wise, it just fits. We are finding more and more stuff in the SDE. I'm sorry, I have actually run out of lore stuff for the Code Aria without getting into some really specific issues that were brought up in the Code Aria documents, which again are really good. It's like 45 pages of a PDF. Everything from code snippets to personnel documents to, there's just all sorts of stuff contained within this thing. Like I said, I'm going to link it down below. It also shows quite a bit about the technology that they talk about how the gates work and the activation sequences and stuff like that is also contained within this document. It's really fascinating from a technical aspect. I know that's probably boring to a lot of other people, but on a purely technical aspect, it's a great document. Sorry, like I said, I was hoping to get all that into one match. It took 2, well, 1.5 to get. But the lore itself is just insane in the surrounding on this one. And, I really do like it quite a bit. It really does, that bit of the lore really does show how CCP, when they really try, can get some really good information out. I'm still being shot at, I know. Just trying to make sure this whole area up here is clear for the moment. But yeah, I really would love to see CCP put out a similar document for some of the dust stuff that's happened. Mostly investigations into different parts of Concord's actions in certain things. Excuse me. Which is rather lacking of late. But yeah, so the combination of these two lore items, at least in my opinion, is the fact that they actually do go together quite well. Both are aspects of the lore that aren't actually that well known, even on the Eve side. Most people just don't, because of how obscure this section of the lore is. They really don't know about it that much, even in the Eve circles, like I said. The Broker is mostly contained within side stories of other stories, or it is a one-off mention here or there, or some oddities within the record itself. Hence why I personally link him to the Code Aria event. There aren't many non-state sponsored groups or persons that would have the amount of technology or the know-how to have achieved the gate hack that was used. However, the Broker would, so that's why I tend to tie him to that incident. I mean, there are some other items where it's thought he may have been active, but nobody knows for sure. But yeah, but it shows the depth that they actually put into these characters and these events, because the Code Aria incident, while it was relatively short in the lore when it actually happened, was really deep and thought out for hey, here's a new section of space to play in kind of thing. And that's one of the things about Eve that really hooked me, is it has these sections of lore where, they had to have spent weeks developing this document just so that they could go, hey, here's a new section of space to play in. And to me, that's probably one of the better aspects of CCP. they're willing to go, hey, we're coming out with this new feature. We're not just going to say, it happened because, things. They're actually going to think about it and say, this is why this happened. These are the events that led up to this. And of course, the most recent one that I really can't equate to anything else at the moment, although it does tie back into the broker because he was one of the reasons Heth himself came into power, was the Titan event at Caldari Prime. That was something that the players decided. We decided that. The Caldari, Space Forces were defeated by the Galente ones. The Titan crashed, and when its pilot was cloned, she then had to stand trial before Heth. And he basically sentenced her to death for it. And he was then brought to account for that because it leaked out that she was ordered to blow up the planet and she didn't. So yeah, it's just the small lore bits that really are some of the best. Anyway, I hope you guys found that interesting. Thank you for listening and watching. Hopefully my deaths amused you. Have a great day.